Hi everyone, Zulfa here. So hopefully this video is going to be very beneficial for everyone who's in Form 4 or who's in Form 5, who's going to be taking their SPM soon, because in this video I'll be explaining on how I studied for my SPM Sejarah KSSM, which makes me get an A+ for my SPM Sejarah paper. So in this video, I will be sharing with you every single detail on the way how I studied for my Sejarah SPM. No worries, I won't miss out any little and single detail on explaining the way how I studied because I already jotted all down and in my iPad. Bukan nak flex tapi kita nak tunjuk bukti sikit. For Sejarah paper, I got an A+ for it. So I personally think that the reason why people have a hard time to score for Sejarah paper, to get an A for Sejarah, it's because they have a hard time remembering all of the facts in their Sejarah book. I admit that you actually have to memorize a lot of facts in order to score Sejarah. And sometimes these facts could be quite complicated, too much, and as what others would say, these facts could be very boring. So as we know, Sejarah paper is divided into two papers. We have paper 1 and paper 2, and overall, the marks that you will obtain from these two papers are 140. Paper 1 contributes 40 marks, paper 2 contributes 100 marks. So I studied paper 1 and paper 2 differently. I really do treat these two papers differently. So now I'll be explaining on how I studied for my paper 1. Basically for paper 1, I literally do a lot of these kertas model, kertas 1 model SPM. So I would literally do this all the time, but literally just answer all of the questions in the kertas model. And near SPM, I will be downloading all of the trial negeri sets and I will do all of the objective questions. And after I am done with my sets, I have a specific book where I actually compile all of the questions that I got wrong. So every time when I do the exercise, I got the questions wrong, I will put it in this book. Okay, I would literally just write the questions that got wrong and the answer to the questions. And I do take doing this thing seriously. To start doing this, you will realize that the questions in paper 1 are actually quite similar. They would just change the questions form, the way how they put the sentence. If you already do this, by the time you're gonna answer for your SPM, you would already have answered the same pattern of questions repeatedly. And before I enter day 1 SPM to answer my paper 1 Sejarah, I did not open up any of my books, notes. I just go through and fully depend on this book of mine. And that's why this book is really important. I do not only read and go through this book before SPM. Before I continue doing my new set, I will also go through this book once again. Surprisingly, my marks do gradually increase from time to time after doing this method for my paper 1 objective. So now I'll be explaining on how I studied for my paper 2. So listen carefully. Paper 2 is actually the paper that you have to focus a lot more compared to paper 1. As when I was studying for my Sejarah, paper 1 ni it's like sebelah mata je lah macam tu. But I mean, if you want to get an A+, of course you kind of have to focus for paper 1 too lah. But I don't really focus entirely on paper 1. My main focus is my paper 2. Listen carefully. To score paper 2 Sejarah, it is all about proficiently implying all of the facts, all of the Sejarah facts into an answer form or an essay form. Before we imply our facts, we first have to remember all of the facts. So how do we remember all of the facts? So how I remembered all the facts? Two things. I first would do mind map. Second, I would recall all of the facts from my mind map. And to recall, I have two ways. First things first. This is my book that I used to prepare for my paper 2. Let me show you. So this is what I did to prepare for my paper 2. So this is how my mind maps look like. Take a look. literally a lot. Like, this is how my mind map looks like, okay? So notice each and every of my mind map is organized in this manner, where first I'll talk about, okay, the first arrow talks about BMA. Under BMA, apa tugas dia? Ada dua tugas, nampak tak? Ada dua cabang cakap pasal tugas. Melayan Union. Apa kena ada wujudnya Melayan Union? And, okay, again, this is very important. Along the way, as you are doing your mind map, do acronyms. And then bawah ni, apa ciri-ciri perlembagaan Melayan Union? Satu arrow sini, satu arrow sini. And notice how I keep everything short and simple. I just jot down the facts sahaja. So how do you first actually make these mind maps? You first have to go through your sejarah buku rujukan. So how do you make sure that your mind map compact with only facts? First, before I start doing mind maps, I will make sure that I go through the whole chapter first. So I will highlight the important points first. I fully understand the chapter first before I make the mind map. So after I have gone through highlighting, making short notes, understanding the whole chapter, I will then identify what are the main points, what are the punca, what are the ciri-ciri, what are the kesan. You just have to identify that in a chapter. Macam siapa yang adakan rundingan, kenapa rundingan dibuat, kesan rundingan. So basically all of the things that I have identified, I will write it down, and then I will close my book and I will do the mind map according to the question list that I have done for that particular chapter. So once you are done, open back your buku rujukan, you identify what are the points that you have missed out, write the points that you have missed out to with a red pen, so that will make you pay more attention to that next time you want to recall. The reason why I close my book and then I write down all of the informations that I remembered, because it will avoid me from just copying everything from the textbook directly on my mind map. When you do this, your brain will only identify all of the main points and elaborations on the topic. By this, your mind map will be all facts, main elaborations, no other elaborations yang melarut-melarut yang tak patut you ingat pun. So now moving on to the most important part of the way how I studied for my sejarah, which is recalling. I recall all of these facts around 2 times per week, and each time I would recall the whole form. So I recall 2 times per week. The first time I would recall for the whole Form 4 chapters, and then the next time I would recall the whole Form 5 chapters. So before you start recalling, of course, you have to make mind maps for all chapters in the whole syllabus, and this of course takes time, so please make sure you do this months and months before your SPM, or in fact 1 year before your SPM, to get an A+. There are 2 ways on how I recall all of my facts. First way is called the active recall. So basically, how do you do this active recall? Remember I showed you this earlier? These are my active recall sheets. Banyak and tebal. By this time, I won't go through my buku rujukan anymore. I would just go through my mind maps. So I will go through my mind maps by chapter, put my mind map book aside. I would do active recall by splurging out and implying back all of the ideas that I have remembered from my mind map book inside my active recall sheet. And next, I will refer back to my mind maps, and then every little detail that I missed out, I would write it in a red pen so that I can emphasize and focus more on that point next time. Just look at this active recall sheet, the ones in red or the points that I missed out as I was recalling. That is the first way on how I recall. Active recall uses a lot of brain power. I focus on doing active recall for chapters that are quite complicated and hard. So next, this is the second way on how I recall my facts. So remember I told you that before I start doing my mind map, I would do a question list where I would list down all of the facts that I would have to remember from each chapter, and I will write down all the acronyms and everything. I will explain it back to myself without looking at the mind map. So let's say this is my question list for bab 3 form 4. So apakah gerakan nasionalism di negara kita? Then in the bracket I letak 3 kan. So that means as I'm recalling, I would try to recall back 3 facts. What is punca World War One? Oh, ada 2. Okay, what are the 2 punca for World War One? That is basically the other way on how I recall my fact. I will also refer to the acronyms. Please do acronyms for all chapters. Acronyms have literally helped me a lot. I do acronyms and I refer to my acronyms like all the time. So you know, as I'm recalling and then suddenly I forgot the fact, I would just refer to the mind map. I would give you my last minute tips for sejarah, what I did before my sejarah paper. Before my sejarah paper, I would literally do all of the objective questions from state trials, and next for paper 2 I would also go through all of the state trial papers and comes out with the question that is macam hotspot questions lah. For all of the hotspot questions, I would list it in my book. So I don't just list down these hotspot questions for no reason. I would list down the questions and I would list down all of the potential answers. Go through this before I answer my paper 2. So that is basically how I studied Sejarah to get an A+ for it. I know it seems like I've put on a lot of effort. I did because I wanted to get an A+ for Sejarah. I hope this video helps you. So don't forget to follow my Instagram, help subscribe, and also like this video. Subscribe to my channel, guys, please. And if you have any questions regarding any other subjects or any other videos or topics that you would like me to talk about, then you can just DM me on my Instagram. Bye bye! Good luck, everyone!